Hey everyone. So I wanted to take a minute because a couple of comments have come in on my page based on a question that I did present in one of my videos, which was, would you like to learn more about me? And a number of you have said, yeah, I'd like to kind of know a little bit more about you. When I first started Unsolicited Ivice on Instagram, it was just pictures of my eye. You couldn't see my face. And then slowly over time, I started to release more pictures of my face. And then really just in the past 9 months to a year, I've started doing more videos with vocal. I really don't like my voice. That shouldn't be a surprise to people because homosexuals notoriously hate their voice. If you haven't seen that movie, please go find it, that documentary. But I really don't like my voice. And so for the longest time, I didn't want to come out with my voice on videos. But over time and with the sweet comments that people have provided, it's given me an opportunity to want to come on here more and share more about myself. So that's what I'm going to do today. If that doesn't interest you, that's fine. I'll have lots of new makeup videos coming because we have so much makeup coming out in the next few weeks. However, if it does interest you and you'd like to just learn a little bit more about somebody, then take a few minutes, sit back, and listen to my story. And you know what? I'd love to hear yours too. If you're a content creator and this inspires you to tell your story, then shoot me a message and let me know so I can watch your video too. Okay, so my name is Wayne. I live in Oklahoma City, although that's a pretty relatively new adventure. Previously, I lived in Northwest Arkansas in the Fayetteville area, and I worked for the University of Arkansas. I worked there for 6 years. It's my alma mater, and I had a really painful departure from there. I now look back, and it was a really difficult situation where I was bullied by some coworkers. I had some coworkers and a supervisor who didn't know what they were doing. And I think that it took me coming here to the University of Oklahoma and working with my now supervisor and my coworkers to realize the dysfunction that I was in over there. It was really painful, however, to leave. It was around this time last year that I had just had it up to here, and the University of Oklahoma offered me a position, and I moved over here in November of last year. And if you followed the channel, you know that all sorts of crazy obstacles have happened since I moved over here. My car was stolen. I had to move. I had to sell a house, a 3-bedroom house, and move into a 1-bedroom apartment. I fell down an escalator. I have had the weirdest things happen to me since I moved here. But so far, I've really enjoyed it. I work in a stressful job for the university. It's kind of a high-profile position. And we work to try to make sure that there's no discrimination or harassment on the campus. And that's, based on someone's gender, their sex, their race, their veteran status, disability status. And unfortunately, that also involves a lot of Title IX sexual assault. And so it's a heavy, heavy industry that I'm in. I love my coworkers. My supervisor has been wonderful. My admin or my intake coordinator was so welcoming to me, and it really has taken this long to get over that Arkansas situation. It's a stressful field, and so therefore a few years ago, I was just kind of flipping through YouTube, and I discovered Alicia Archer, Kinky Sweat, and Patty Alonso. And those two women, and subsequently some others, Sophia Sees Beauty and Han Beauty and Not Fit for Print Beauty, sort of got me really interested in makeup. I didn't know really much about it. I had a concealer, I think, for dark spots, nights out, but I didn't really know anything about makeup. And I remember it was Alicia Archer, and she was demonstrating, this was the time, the Bronze palette and the Zendo palette from Natasha Denona, which oddly are two palettes that a lot of people don't like. I really love them, but maybe that's because they're my OGs. But the way that Alicia swatches is so stunningly beautiful. I don't know how her fingers do something that mine do not, but when it comes to swatching, but it just kind of brought me in. So I got those two palettes, and for a good while I was just playing. I would occasionally take pictures and send them to my best friend, and play and just watch TV. And then he suggested, as an outlet, because of the difficult work that I do love, but it's difficult work, that perhaps starting the Instagram would be a nice way in. And like I said, it's really grown from photos to short Instagram reels to videos without me speaking to where we're at now. I had to move in last year, and that was incredibly painful and difficult. You know, I had lived in my house for 15 years. I had lived in there with my ex-husband and pets. I had survived through a marriage and divorce, and pretty much the birth and then to the end of my two wonderful dogs, Charlie and Harper. And so I had a lot of memories tied up in that place. And of course I had friends that lived there and some family. But I thought this was the time. I'm 43 years old. And I thought, this is the time, if you're going to make a change, you might as well make it, in the words of Michael Jackson. So I moved over here and had all sorts of weird little occurrences happen in the beginning, but found my apartment in February. And I have a very limited setup. I have a wall of shelving for makeup and a vanity. And because of the darkness of the room, I kind of have to light from behind and then the sides. And that's been a real trick to get perfectly right. And it's probably still not perfect, but at least it's a way that I can utilize the space. I pretty much had a room for beauty when I was in Fayetteville, although my videos do not look so good. But then I decided that I was gonna, when I moved over here, I was gonna have to find some way to do my hobby, my interest, but with much less space. My first Pat McGrath palette was about a year later, and I got Midnight Sun. And I knew that if I ever got a Pat McGrath palette, it was going to become a problem. And so I got one, and then when I felt the way her textures were, the way her mattes blended out, her blitz shades, it just opened up a new door to me. And it really was Pat McGrath's Astral Solstice, that special shade that's in Mothership 6 and 7, that really brought me into the brand. And I thought, oh shit. Because here's the thing about me. When I become infatuated with a brand, I have to have everything they have. So I have pretty much every palette Pat McGrath has put out. When I learned about a new brand, I really didn't want to get into the Louis Vuitton until I felt it. And then I realized I'm going to have to get all the refills, which thank God they have, because they're more affordable. I pretty much have everything Natasha Denona's put out. I have everything Adept has put out. All the YSL quads, all the Prada quads, because I have a problem. And it's because I'm a completist. And I'm trying to work through that. And you'll notice, like, not fit for print and hand beauty, they talk about it a lot now, because with the rising costs of makeup, it's really hard if you have those kind of problems, or if you really want to show the newest products, because quite frankly, the new Chanel 9 pans, the new Louis Vuittons, those are the things that draw people into the channel, and then hopefully they subscribe and hopefully they stay. I hope so. but it's a very expensive hobby. I have tried in the past to get some promotional PR. I've occasionally received small amounts, like singular pallets from brands, but really the only company that has sent me on a regular basis is Danessa Myricks, and I'm so grateful for that company. They have been so easy to work with and helpful. I'd like to get more because the cost is just crazy, and I certainly don't make it back on the Shop My Links. I'm still trying to get people to do that, but it's a fraction of what I've spent. Now, it does help with your tax burden if you're a creator, because you can run it against your day job, and so that does help a little bit, but it's nowhere near. And but I do love it, and this has been a really cool way to connect with people, to see your comments and suggestions. There's been lighting suggestions. I had some eczema on my forehead, and somebody told me what to get, and it's so much better now. I didn't even know what it was. I thought it was maybe just like a little breakout, but it's just been overwhelming, the amount of support that I've received. A lot of that has come from other content creators that I really like and respect sharing my content. And Charlotte Holdcroft or Sophia Sees Beauty shared something once. Kinky Sweat, my goddess, she shared me, and that really helped, because hopefully they like what I'm doing and the way I approach makeup and the way I talk to you about makeup. And so maybe they've felt the need or been kind enough to share it, and I'm so grateful for that. The basics. Okay. Born in Little Rock, near Little Rock. I am the youngest of three. My parents are quite a bit older than traditional parents, around my age. They're in their mid 80s. My brother and sister were quite a bit older. They were pretty much already out of the house when I was in school. I went to Jonesboro, to ASU, on a debate scholarship, and did debate throughout high school and college. And that's over near Memphis. Then I worked for a year at Disney World and did the Disney internship. And then when I came to grad school in Fayetteville at the University of Arkansas, and got my master's degree, I also worked at the Disney store until pretty much it closed. Since then, I've worked in the hospitality industry. I have owned my own business. My ex-husband and I owned a tailoring and custom clothing store. If you ever want to look up some of those videos, it's under the name Bonner Bell, BonnerBell. And we had a store in Fayetteville for 5 years, where we did a lot of custom wedding dresses and custom clothing. However, owning a store, owning a business, and then just time put a lot of strain on the marriage, and it ended about a decade ago. I lived in Fayetteville for 20 years, 15 of which in my home, and then had that move last year that was both bittersweet, but also really great because it's kind of pushed me out of my comfort zone. My best friend lives in Springfield, Missouri, and I talk about them on this channel sometimes. I try to go up there about once a year, or excuse me, once a month, and then they come down here about once a month, and we just hang out and watch TV and go out and enjoy food and a bar, and it's just a really great friendship. I'm really into tennis, and so I go to the US Open every year. I have season tickets where my best friend and I go, and then meet two of my other closest friends, a mother and daughter, and we sit together every year at the Open. I've done that for 14 years now. Let's see, what else am I really into? Well, watching tennis the rest of the year. I'm into Olympic sports, mostly solo Olympic sports like figure skating and gymnastics. I know that sounds cliche, but I really do love it. I can go in a deep dive with you about 90s figure skating and 90s ice dance for hours on end. I love film. I love TV. I love awards season, as Maura Rose would say. So I'm an awards junkie, from the Grammys to the Tonys. Speaking of going to New York every year, I love theater. I'm very into live performance, and so I enjoy doing that. And then, of course, when I'm in New York, I also enjoy shopping and going to, you know, all the stores, and Bergdorf Goodman is my mecca. You'll hear me talk about that a lot. Sometimes I don't even buy anything. I often can't. It's so expensive. But I just like the way they've set that store up and the history of that store, and to go upstairs and have a drink or something to eat. Let's see. Oklahoma City. I've enjoyed it. It's been really hard to meet new people. It's hard when you're 44 and... 43? No, 44. And you know, you're at work all day, and then you come home, and most days I'll shoot something like this and it's already dark outside, and I go to bed by 10 o'clock. I don't have much of a desire to go out late at night during the week. But it has been challenging to meet people. I have a lot of good friends, some in Fayetteville, some in New York, and then some scattered around. I've got one in Connecticut. I've got one in upstate New York from my time at Disney. I've got some in Arkansas. But I just haven't made a lot of great connections here outside of the ones that I have at work, and I'm so thankful for those. So, what questions do you have for me? I think I've tried to lay out a little bit about me. It sounds a little bit like we were maybe on a first date, and after that discussion of sort of my abridged life history, you might feel like you need a drink. But maybe that gave you a little more information as to who I am. What I tend to do is 2 to 3 times a week, I will upload content. Right now it's a little bit more because there's so much material coming out, but I will always try to upload at least twice a week on Instagram. And when the releases are so heavy like they are right now, it ends up being split kind of between Instagram and YouTube. So if you like my content, I'd really like it if you visited both. I think that that's a good introduction to me. And like I said, if you're a content creator and you've never done this, let me know a little bit about you. Please like, subscribe, follow along, shop those links. Unsolicited Ivice on Instagram and YouTube. And I really appreciate you coming and listening today. I did not want to do this, but maybe it gives you a better idea of who I am and kind of where I've been, what I do during the day, and how I get into makeup, beauty, and skincare. So, bye everyone. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks everyone. Bye.